Hi, my name is Ptolemy Pruden. I'm the host of the Common Sense Defense podcast. It's great having you today. This is a very exciting series that we're getting ready to go into. And I think it's really apropos for the season that our nation is in, particularly with the Indo-Pacific, United States, um, Australia, Japan, the Philippines. It's really a critical time for all of us. And so my hope is that over the next few sessions, we're able to kind of delve into some of the details of how we can work together with our treaty partner friends and allies so that we can have common processes in how we do ISR, which is intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, how we work on basing capabilities. So I want to look at some of those things and kind of share that on the backdrop of what happened over the last week with the trilateral summit with Japan and the Philippines and the United States. In addition to that, I want to look at that with the book that I have, which is called China Rising: The Case for Containment. It's a book that I wrote. I think you may have already seen this. Let me get a copy for you there. And so we'll use this book here as a foundation for what we've been going to be discussing in these segments. There are going to be 4 segments in all. So the name of this series is called the Indo-Pacific Collaboration: Building the Framework for Treaty Partner Defense Integration. Let me say that again. It is Indo-Pacific Collaboration: Building the Framework for Treaty Partner Defense Integration. So, in one of the chapters of the book that I have is called Arming AUKUS, the Framework for Treaty Partner Defense Integration. Same concept, but we're focusing more on just our Indo-Pacific allies, being Japan, the Philippines, South Korea, even, and how we can work with those countries to integrate our defense capabilities collectively. So let's look at a couple of things. I want to go on and read a section to you out of the book in chapter 12. It says the collaborative environment of ISR and command and control platforms offer each treaty nation a multi-domain transparency of the entire Indo-Pacific region. It is like NATO and the European theater, or South Korea with the US in dealing with the North Korean area of operation. So the same way that we have a framework in place in NATO in dealing with the Soviet Union, old Soviet Union, now current Russia, the same way that we were dealing with command control capabilities there is exactly the same way that we need to have an ability to see what's going on in the Indo-Pacific. So we have a couple of layered friendships and allies there. We work with India. We work with Australia. We work with the Philippines. We work with Japan. We work with the Micronesia, our friends in the Micronesian area, and we also deal with Japan. And so all of our friends across the Indo-Pacific region, we have to have common communication, common operation, common policies. And until you're able to do that, you really can't execute a successful, peaceful strategy to offer a deterrence to China. Now, let's look at a couple of things. I think the most important thing that we can look at right now is what's working and what's not working. So we're going to look at Japan for right now. So Japan, they have to modernize their defense structure so that everything comes under one joint command. So there is the permanent Japan defense self-defense organization that they're going to be developing, and so that's going to be rolling out in the next year. And then there's also the United States version of what we're going to do from making our command and control there in Japan. So we have 2 different platforms that will be working together. So that's kind of like an example of what we need to do in the next year that we're working through, in the next year to 2 years, in bringing back a common infrastructure. Ideally, what you want to do is you want all of your treaty friends and treaty allies to be on the same page when it comes down to a common understanding of what the threat is and how we can work together to get the information to track aircraft, track submarines, track ships, track drones, and track different types of capabilities that China may have, and also Russia may have in the Indo-Pacific. And how do we make that work? How do we understand where everything is? And so the only way that we can do that is by having transparency and also have a common infrastructure in place so that we can leverage our capabilities with each other. So the first island chain, which is going from all the way through Japan, all the way down to Philippines, all the way down to Singapore, that first island chain is the most critical area that we have to make sure that we're able to secure. It's also the most critical area, the first area that China wants to take over so that they can have access to the Pacific. So you got that jousting back and forth. Currently, we hold it, we've held it, and we're projected to hold it. The weak spot or the weak link in that is Taiwan. So when we look at how China has over the last 2 to 4 years been sending aircraft there and doing military exercises around Taiwan, in the attempt to threaten them, in the attempt to let them understand that Taiwan belongs to China, the PRC, and that they should not be looking for anything that's outside of being in the sphere of influence and in the one nation, two systems concept. In other words, China doesn't want Taiwan to be an independent nation. So to do their threatening capabilities, that's something that China has been doing, will continue to do, because they want to make sure that Taiwan stays in their sphere of influence and stays in that one nation, two system process. So let's look at the importance of working together with the framework. So the framework is like an architecture. It's like the same policies that my country has is the same policy that your country has, is the same policy that our friends have. And we all have the same policies in place, then we can share our systems, share our technology, share our weapons capability with each other, and we're able to provide a unified front or a unified positioning against a potential adversary. If we do not have the same framework in place or the same architecture in place, then there will be those hiccups, those problems. Then when you have combat or have issues that you need to address, you don't have singularity of capabilities. You don't have no common ground where you can have cross-platform, cross-policy capabilities. How does each individual military to military communications go? If I have a weapon system that works on my platform, how do I get my platforms working with your platforms? If we have to do Link 16, which is an intelligence sharing communication capability, if I'm on one frequency, what frequency are that? So there's a whole lot of common ground that the military establishment has to go through, the political establishment has to go through, the proper policies have to be put in place. Everyone has to be on the same page, and it takes time to do that. And so when we look at the trilateral agreements and the trilateral conversation that we had last week with the United States, Japan, and the Philippines, they were discussing all that. And so those things, those types of communications, how do we turn the temperature up? How do we collaborate? How do we work together? That's what they were discussing, and now we get to kind of benefit from that as we continue to develop our capabilities. So that's kind of what we're going to be going through over the next 3 segments. We're going to break down how it goes with Japan. We're going to break down how it goes with the Philippines, and then we're going to break down how it works together for all those platforms or all those policies. Now, the policies in the framework, they're just regular policies. They're just your standard policy architectural things like I just discussed. But then there's a physical architecture, meaning you have to practice taking a plane from a squadron from one place to another place, and you have to go through the process of using of deploying that plane and have lessons learned. If we have an airfield that is controlled by Japan, and we have an airplane coming in from the United States, what kind of processes are in place? What kind of planes can go there? How long is their runway? Are there refueling capabilities? What type of weapons do they have? What kind do we have the same common platforms with each plane? So how many different types of plane types can we send into this airbase? So all those different types of things you have to work out in peacetime, so that when you get into a time of conflict, those capabilities are already there in place. And you have to do that same multilateral training, that same multilateral or bilateral capability. You got to do that across every platform from a physical perspective. So everything that you kind of give a policy for, the architecture, then you got to come right back in with that physical training, that physical capabilities so they can make sure that those policies and those procedures work. And so, so those are the types of things that you have your high level people sitting around talk, and they share information, then they do trainings, and they go through different types of interoperable capability studies to make sure that everyone's on the same